And the other thing I would certainly, and this is a shout out to the Alaska tourism industry, and we've certainly seen this over and over and over, where the hunting and trapping community has just absolute contempt for the tourism industry and also for the visitors who come up to Alaska. And so if you're part of the tourism industry, and there are certain aspects of our Alaskan tourism industry that sell furs within their gift shops or on their properties, well, that's supporting the hunters or trappers who are attempting and successfully doing the subversion of Denali National Parks and other air protected areas protections of wolves and other animals. And in regards to that alpha female in 2005, well, it was estimated that she was left in the trap for 12 days. And her teeth were broken. They did a necropsy. Her teeth were broken as she was trying to get out of that snare, or actually out of the trap. She had gravel in her stomach. And there's just no way that that is a humane way to kill an animal. It just isn't. And snaring, by the way, that strangles wildlife to death. And it doesn't necessarily happen quickly. In 2008, we had a wolf that had snapped the snare, came into Denali National Park, where on the pavement stretch, which is that first 14.5 miles of Park Road, this wolf had a huge gaping wound going around its neck, had a swollen head. It was still trailing the snare. In this particular case, Park Service did intervene. They did tranquilize the wolf. They removed the snare. They gave the wolf antibiotics, and then they released it. And that was absolutely the correct thing for Park Service to do, and I absolutely applaud them for doing that. To intervene in a human-caused injury, which they did in 2008. So I absolutely applaud them for doing that, and I certainly would hope that if something like that were to happen in the future, whether it's wolves or something else, with a human-caused injury, that Park Service would again, be willing to intervene in such a positive manner. That particular wolf, by the way, I did take video of that wolf as well with this huge gaping wound. That's also available on YouTube as well, so you can actually see it for yourself. But there's no way that that is also a humane way to kill an animal. Trapping and snaring, the best way to think of this, these are biological landmines that are left out, where they're planted, and they're arbitrary in what they kill. Anything that steps in them can be trapped or snared, and they could be there for days, suffering before the trapper comes back, and finishes them off with a gunshot, to the head or so. So again, I want to make the point very clear that this isn't just an isolated case for Denali. They are targeting the wolves not only in Denali, they're also targeting the wolves here in Yellowstone, they're also targeting the wolves in Glacier National Park. And one of the other pieces of disinformation that the hunters and trappers use in Alaska all the time in regards to Denali is that they claim that the wolves are protected on the full 6.2 million acres of Denali National Park and Preserve. That is blatantly untrue. The wolves are only protected fully and completely on the original 2 million acres of Denali National Park, that wilderness section. The other 4 million acres of preserve and new additions, which were added on in 1980, subsistence hunting and trapping is allowed in both preserve and new additions, and recreational hunting and trapping is allowed in the preserve. And furthermore, prior to Trump leaving office in 2020, they authorized abhorrent hunting practices to be done in all Alaska national preserves, including Denali's preserve. What that means is that wolf pups and coyote pups can be killed, black bears can be flashlighted and then shot in the den, black bears with cubs can be shot, bears can be baited as well, and of course for bears that are not shot, as a hunter tries to select which bear that they want to shoot, well, those bears that receive human food and grease, well, they become potentially food habituated and then a danger to any park visitor or preserve visitor. And then they also, in those abhorrent hunting practices, allow swimming caribou to be shot from motorboats. Now, how is any of that even remotely ethical or responsible? And the group that really was pushing hard to enact all that was Safari Club, and also the Alaska Outdoor Council, and also the Alaska Trappers Association. So all of those those abhorrent hunting practices are allowed in Denali's National Preserve and new additions, in addition to our park wolves being targeted and killed in that northeast quadrant of state lands called the Wolf Townships. And then last but not least, according to the Alaska Wildlife Alliance, there's only 2.3% of Alaska where wolves are totally and completely protected. That's in that wilderness core area of Denali, that 2 million acres I was just referring to. Also would be the wilderness core area of Katmai and Glacier Bay National Park. That's it. Only 2.3% of Alaska is where wolves enjoy total and complete protection. How is that balance? I was always under the impression that balance is a 50-50 proposition. And so, again, when you hear about a lot of the disinformation that's put forward by the hunters and trappers, you really want to question it deeply. They do not have the credibility to make any of these claims in regards to wolves. Anyway, you can go to more information on what's happened to Denali's wolves on Denali Wolves at Facebook. That's a Facebook advocacy and education group site that I administer. There's also Denali drivers, naturalists, Park Service personnel, visitors. We welcome pretty much everyone. We just ask that folks be civil to one another. And if there's a hunter or trapper who wants to civilly debate this issue, we're more than happy to have you come on Denali Wolves and debate the issue. Just be aware that we're going to be throwing factual, scientific information at you, and so I'd love to hear you counter it. The hunters, the extremists in the hunting and trapping community will not stop with wolves. They most certainly will go after Yellowstone's grizzlies if grizzlies are taken off that threatened list, and if they can bear bait them outside Yellowstone National Park. I have no doubt about that. So don't think this is just isolated to wolves. Be aware they're not just going to stop at wolves. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening. If Secretary Howland were somehow to come across this video, I would certainly encourage you to strip away state management on federal lands, whether it's here in Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Wisconsin, and most certainly in Alaska. Please consider that. These states have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt how irresponsible they are in regards to wolf management. And again, I would certainly encourage you to do that. One final thing in regards to those abhorrent hunting practices that are ongoing in Denali's Preserve, the Alaska environmental community has filed a lawsuit against the National Park Service in regards to that, and I am certainly hoping that lawsuit, that the environmental community wins that lawsuit and does away with that. And the other thing that needs to be addressed in regards to that in the preserve and new additions is that in 2015 there was an information sheet put out where in one segment of the preserve, actually two segments of the preserve, Alaska has what's called game management units, and hunters were able to kill up to 10 wolves in one of those two of those game management units that include Denali's Preserve, and trappers were allowed to kill an unlimited number of wolves in those two areas of the preserve. That's something I absolutely feel has to be addressed. The preserve tends to be overlooked, and kind of think of it as the stepchild, Denali's stepchild, because it doesn't really receive a lot of attention. It certainly doesn't receive a lot of visitation unless you're going out to Kantishna, and that's just a very small segment. So that's something else that also needs to be addressed to significantly reduce those bag limits if at all possible. Again, thanks for tuning in. Again, please check out Denali Wolves at Facebook for more information, and I'm going to be providing more and more information on the Denali Wolves Facebook group site. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a great day.